Good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, and it's April the 22nd. We just finished our Zoom chat, so everybody that was able to join us, it was really great seeing you. This is the math lesson that we're going to do for today that was in your home lesson plan, and that was adding and subtracting mixed numbers. And when we say mixed numbers, we mean that it's a whole number and a fraction. So at the top of the page here that I have on my screen, you'll see that there's a whole number, the whole number 3, and then the fraction 3/8. So that would be like if we had pizzas, 3 whole pizzas, and then 3/8 of a pizza left over. So 3 slices left out of a pizza cut into 8 slices. And then we're going to add to that 2 and 1/8. So the whole number is 2. So that's like having 2 whole pizzas, the entire thing. And then we have another 1/8 left over, or like 1 out of 8 pieces in a pizza cut into 8 pieces. Okay. So when we add mixed numbers, and if you look at the example here, they start with the fraction side. So just like we would if we were adding whole numbers, we would start in the ones place. We're going to start in the fractions place. So we know that when we're adding or subtracting fractions, we have to have a like denominator before we add or subtract. So if we have unlike denominators, meaning different bottom numbers of the fraction, we first have to find a common denominator. We need to find common denominators before we can add or subtract. But in this lesson, we already have like denominators, but we are going to be simplifying the fractions. So yesterday we did not simplify, we just kind of did a one-step adding or subtracting. Today we're going to add and subtract, and we're going to simplify. And all of our fractions will have like denominators. Okay, so we have 3 and 3/8 plus 2 and 1/8. And remember, just like they've shown you in our example, denominator, we don't add them. It always stays the same. 8, same, 8, same, 8. We only add the numerators. And if we add 3 plus 1, we're going to get 4. Okay, so far I've just done that step. Denominator stays the same. Add my numerators. And then the last thing I'm going to do is add the whole numbers. And you add the whole numbers just like you would add any whole numbers. 3 plus 2 is 5. So I'm just going to write that right below. And you'll notice that these are set up vertically, meaning up and down, not horizontally side to side. If you see a problem that's set up horizontally, meaning going across, I would like for you to write it vertically. Because you'll see in this last step, we have to simplify. So they really haven't done this, shown the work, I guess, to simplify. They've just written the simplified fraction. When I bring up my paper here in a second, I'll actually go through the steps and show the work. But 5 is a whole number. It stays 5. It does not need to be simplified. However, 4/8, the fraction 4/8, can be simplified because it has a common factor. The numerator and denominator have a common factor. That means a number that can divide into 4 evenly, that can also divide into 8 evenly. Okay, so what number goes into 4 that can also go into 8? And we try to find the greatest common factor, the GCF, because then we only have to simplify one time. So the greatest common factor here is 4. And I can do 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Okay, when I bring up my paper, I'll walk you through the steps. But my simplified answer is 5 1/2. Okay, so we're going to try this one here. I'm going to write it down so I remember it because I'm going to bring up some paper. It's 5 2/6 plus 4 2/6. Okay. And my paper. Okay. Get my pen. And what mood am I in? I'll do like burgundy today. Okay. So. And actually, I think on the paper it was letter A. But I wrote number 1. Okay. So we are going to add 5, the whole number 5, and 2/6. Plus 4 2/6. Okay, and there's my problem. Okay, so we know when we're adding mixed numbers or fractions, we have to have a like denominator. So that's the first thing I'm going to check. Do I have a like denominator? Yes, I do. I have 6, 6, and then I'm going to put another 6 down here. Because I never add the denominator. I never subtract the denominator of a fraction. We have to find a like denominator, a common denominator, and then we just keep the denominator the same. Okay, but I can add the numerators. So 2 plus 2 is 4. Okay, that wasn't hard. That was pretty simple. So I've added 2/6 plus 2/6, and I have 4/6. My whole number is just like adding whole numbers that you've been doing in the past. So I just have 5 plus 4, and that's 9. Okay, and I'm going to write the 9 bigger since it is a whole number. Okay, so we have 9 and 4/6. Now, remember on this particular exercise, we are going to simplify the fraction. And fractions really should always, your answer should always be left in simplest form. So, like if you are using fractions in practical life anywhere, say you're making a recipe and they're calling for some amount of an ingredient, you won't ever see 4/6 of a cup of anything, 4/6 of a cup of milk. You won't see that because this is not in simplest form. So we need to simplify. 9 will stay 9. There's nothing really we need to do to simplify that. But 4/6, there is a number that can divide into 4 and a number that can, same number that can divide into 6. They have a common factor. We want to try to find the greatest common factor. So if a number that can divide into 4 evenly, that also divides into 6 evenly, is 2. So I'm going to divide my numerator by 2, divide my denominator by 2. Okay, 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, so now is my fraction in simplest form? Yes, because 2 and 3 do not have any common factors except the number 1. 1 can go evenly into any number, but if we divide by 1, we're still going to get 2/3. Does not change the fraction. So when the only common factor is the number 1, then that means it is in simplest form, and that is a 2, not a z. So 9 and 2/3 is my final answer. 2/3 is the measurement you would see on a measuring cup. If you are making something and the recipe calls for 2/3 of a cup of milk, you can find that on a measuring cup because that is a common fraction and it is in simplest form. Okay, I'm going to erase that and we'll go to the next example on the worksheet, which is letter B. And we have 6 1/4 plus 1 1/4. So I'm going to do letter B right here on my paper. Okay, let's see. Let's use blue. Okay, I'm just going to write it bigger. 6 1/4 plus 1 1/4. Okay, so remember, even if this was written horizontally, meaning going across side by side, I still want to work it out vertically. And vertically means going up and down, because when we need to simplify the fraction, it makes it easier, it makes more sense. So remember, before we add or subtract fractions or mixed numbers, we have to make sure that we have like denominators. We have 4s in both denominators. So same, and my answer should also be the same. Okay, now I can add my numerator. 1 plus 1 is 2. And then I can add my whole numbers just the same way we've been adding whole numbers. 6 plus 1 is 7. Okay, 7 2/4. And then whenever I'm working with fractions, I need to make sure that my answer is in simplest form. So I have to ask myself, is there a common factor, a number that can divide into the numerator that can also divide into the denominator? Yes, there is a number that can divide into 2 evenly that can also divide into 4 evenly. Can you think of what it is? What number goes into 2 and also goes into 4? Okay, it is 2. I can divide by 2. So we know that whole number stays the same. We don't need to simplify that, but 2 divided by 2 and 4 divided by 2. Okay, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. Okay, 7 2/4 is equal to 7 1/2. All I did was simplify the fraction, but that right here is my actual final answer. Okay, so I've done 2 adding. The worksheet has all examples of adding, but I'm going to try a subtraction one. So let's do a subtraction one. And this is not on the worksheet. I'm just going to kind of make it up. Let's use red. So this is an example. Let's say I have 8 And 5, 6. And I'm going to subtract 2 and 1, 6. Okay, so I have 8 and 5 sixths, and I'm going to subtract 2 and 1 sixth. Okay, before I subtract fractions or mixed numbers, I want to make sure I have like denominators. So I have like denominators, 6, 6, and I will put another 6 down here because we know we never add or subtract the denominator, just stays the same. But I can do 5 minus 1 in my numerator. So 5 minus 1 is 4. That's my numerator. And then 8 minus 2, I'm just going to subtract those the way I would whole numbers. 8 minus 2 is 6. Okay. So I've got 6 and 4 sixths. Now I want to ask myself, though, is this in simplest form? Is this my final answer? Or can I simplify that fraction? Is there a number that can divide into 4 that can also divide into 6? Yes, 2. 2 goes into 4, and 2 can also go into 6. So I'm going to write my whole number because that doesn't change, 6. But I can divide by 2 in my numerator, divide by 2 in the denominator. Anytime I multiply or divide my numerator and denominator by the same number, I will end up with an equivalent fraction. So I'm not really changing the value of the fraction, I'm just putting it in simplest form. Because again, if you are looking at measuring cups or any kind of recipe or practical use of fractions, you won't see 4 sixths. They're always going to put the fraction in simplest form. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 6, that's a 6. It looks like a 5 a little bit. 6 and 4 sixths is equal to 6 and 2/3. And this would be my final answer in simplest form. And that's it. Okay, guys, so I am going to go ahead and stop the video here and post the video on Seesaw. I'll also be posting a very short science video, and then we'll assign this worksheet only asking you to do 5 of these problems. And then I'll also give you an option to do some adding and subtracting of mixed numbers on IXL. So if you'd rather do that on IXL, you can do it on IXL, or you can do this worksheet. Okay, so be looking for the science video. I'll be posting that shortly. Have a great day. Enjoy your week, and I will see you again next Wednesday in our Zoom meeting. Okay, bye everybody.